Hey guys, thanks for joining another episode of Price on Purpose. I am your host, Stacy Price, and I am joined with the awesome Joe Reid. Joe, is it okay if I call you Joe or Joseph? Because I realized that I was like, it changed.
Yeah, please call me Joe. That would
Joe.
be my preference. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Joe, I'm grateful to speak with you about broken people, your mission, your why, and most importantly, your how today. So, if you can, just tell us a little bit about what Broken People is and how it was founded.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on, Stacy. I appreciate it. Broken People is primarily a mental health peer support group. It's an international group. We're in, last time I checked, was 44 countries.
Mm,
And what we do is we just provide primarily online peer support for people
mhm,
that has, and because, we're online and because so much can be done online, we do more than just like, hey, here's a kind word when you're
mhm.
struggling emotionally. Like we've had somebody in near Berlin, Germany, that needed some assistance because she was dealing with some assault issues, and we were able to find her help.
Oh,
In the city
amen.
of Berlin,
Okay.
where because she was dealing with so much anxiety and PTSD related to the assault that she just couldn't. Man, I don't know if you've ever been to that place where you've been stuck and you
Oh,
just
yeah.
can't get to that place where even though it's not that hard to find the resources, like we can help you get there. We can contact them,
Hmm.
pretty easily. I call it broken people because when I'm at my lowest point, when I'm
Hmm.
the most depressed,
Hmm.
that's how I kind of best describe myself.
Hmm.
And like I know for some people that deal with like depression and stuff, that could be seen as an insult, say I'm not broken or whatever. But I knew that there are some people that are out there that title of my book, Broken Like Me, that do feel
Mm.
broken like me, that'll resonate with them.
Yeah.
And apparently they're all over the world. So people that feel broken come to our community, and we encourage one another. I love quoting that never so common phrase, hurt people. But I
Mm.
like to say that hurt people help people because
Yes.
you know what it's like to hurt. And
Right.
you don't want your worst enemy to go through that experience that you have. So we're a
Right.
community of helping people as best we can. And, there's a lot of situations that we run across in our group. And I'm sure that you've run across in your life where you don't know how to help this person,
Right.
but you for sure know how to love people. And that's
Right.
what I encourage, my leaders to do. That's what we encourage people when they have a problem. We might have all the initials after our names to say that we've got such and such a degree or
Right.
status, but I think we all have a little bit of love in our hearts to be able to give, and I think that goes a long way with people. So, um,
Hmm.
we're not a nonprofit. We're not, you know, any kind of organization making money. I make a little bit of cash off my book, but we're just out here just trying to encourage and love on people.
That's
That's
beautiful.
yeah, and it started. Um, I don't know. Will people be able to see the pictures that I hold up here, or is it
Yeah.
just straight up audio? So my
Yeah.
buddy Nathan,
Hmm.
he was a good friend of mine, and he was our worship pastor at our church.
Hmm.
I'll try to get this on here. And as you can see,
Yes.
we're twins. Um, well, he always called us twins.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And like when I first met him, he was the worship pastor at our church, and he was
Hmm.
just coming on, and he had just gotten out of the mental hospital,
Hmm.
and I was just getting ready to go in. And
Mm.
I had some trauma related to my first visit in the hospital back in 2001.
Hmm.
And I never wanted to go back. Like there was some messed up stuff that happened in the hospital. And my buddy
Mm.
Nathan was just like, hey, I just got out of this place. You're going to be safe.
Hmm.
So I go in, and this guy and I, we relate to each other really well. We both are very passionate about Oreos and Southern tea,
Mm.
and so we just, I don't know, we just kind of fed off each other, encourage each other, and he's got 8 kids,
Oh, wow.
and married for a while, and I've got 4 kids,
Mm.
and we just him and I both were not really that great at boundaries.
Mm.
Um, and in 2016, I was looking to go into business for myself
Hmm.
and had taken all the concepts. of things that I had introduced into my life to help me function as a person with a serious mental illness in
Mm-hmm.
society in a productive way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to a professional organizational developer here in West Michigan, and I asked like, hey, here's all the things that make me who I am. What do I do with this? And he's like, I don't have a clue. Like there are great things about you,
Yeah.
but I'm really thinking that you need a catalyst to kind of push you in a specific direction.
Mm.
And that catalyst happened on January 25th of 2018 when my best friend Nathan took his life.
Mm.
Um, and as soon as I got the phone call, I'm a courier for FedEx. That's my
Mm-hmm.
job. Um, I was up in northern Michigan, got the phone call that my buddy had died,
Mm-hmm.
and like as soon as I hung up that phone, like I knew, like I got the biggest call from God, the clearest thing that I've ever thought I've ever had. To do this thing, broken
Mm.
people, to write a book,
Mm.
and my initial emotion during all of that was just anger and rage,
Right.
and that pushed me. That only pushes you so far when you're angry, and the love's got
Yeah.
to carry you the rest of the way. And
Right.
uh, I was angry with my friend. I was angry with me. I was angry with God, the church,
Mm.
people that were so-called his friend.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and so I just started writing, and I just started reaching out and just asking, you know, because we don't know what you don't know, right? And sometimes
Right.
that thing that you don't know is you don't know the questions to ask. So I
Right.
just started asking stupid questions. And,
Mm.
people that are smarter than me, wiser than me, and hopefully they would point me in the right direction.
Mm.
That's it in a nutshell.
Mm. Yeah, I was reading a little bit of your story. I was like, okay, do not cry. But you know, I, I guess I could say when I read a little bit of your story and the loss of your friend, I can only imagine, just like you described, how traumatic that experience was to start this questioning process. But it seems to me that as I've been having conversations with people that have experienced whether somebody they loved and cared about uh, went through with the process of suicide, or if they themselves attempted suicide, it seems that when we get to that point, depending on, I don't even know what the factors are, Joe. I
Mm.
don't know what the factors are, but something happens where we create massive action. What do you think it was for you? Like, was it per se the pain, the belief? Like, what was it for you to start? Like, because you said you just started writing, so you started to ask questions. Do you Are you able to describe a little bit more of what pivoted you in this direction?
Yeah, like I've always been a helper. Like
Mm.
if you've ever done like Strength Finders 2.0, like
Mm.
my major gifting is empathy.
Mm.
And I, by the way, I hate that my major gift is empathy, but
I
it's who
understand.
I am.
Yeah.
And growing up, uh, like I've always been passionate about loving people and helping people.
Mm.
Um, and that doesn't always come across the best way either. Like you can be helping
Mm.
people, quote unquote, helping people, and it can be toxic.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what Nathan was doing. Nathan was he would I mean he'd be there for anybody, any time of the day, which really pissed me off because when he needed people, they weren't there for him.
Mm.
But he when you take that glass and it's empty, there's nothing. He just drained himself empty for everybody else. And then when he
Mm.
needed sustenance, when he was thirsty, there was nothing left in his glass. And
Right.
that was actually his third attempt in the last, pardon me, 6 months. Um,
Mm.
so he had two other attempts within a 6 month period.
Mm.
Pretty thought out experiences too. And for me, it just hit me that moment of getting that call, or that conversations 2 years prior where I was talking with an organizational developer where he's like, oh, this catalyst, and like my anger um, with this person that I'd always tried to be for other
Mm,
people.
mm,
This right Christian, this right nice person, it just, and
mm,
it was me trying to be true to myself, but I didn't know what that meant.
mm,
And until I could have a very frank and honest conversation with myself and with
mm.
God, I felt like, like no progress was going to be made.
Right.
So God and I had a few tit
Mm,
tats going on, and I
mhm,
certainly I threw off my airs. I was just like, I'm not posing for anybody else. I'm just going to be me,
mm,
and it makes it so much easier. It kind of takes the weight off your shoulders
mm,
when you start to define what
mm.
success feels to yourself, as opposed to having other people around you defining what success looks like for you. It
Yes.
takes that pressure off you, because then you're functioning more in your giftedness than you are in your fear of other
Well,
people. So,
oh man, Joe, that's heavy. That's heavy. You're so, I align with this. You mentioned boundaries, um, and I can definitely understand that perspective and life. I feel like some of us, and let me know if you feel this way or felt that way about your friend as well. It's like we get stuck in people pleasing. Like we're there to help others, we're there to make them okay, we're there to attend to their needs, and then we forget about the source, which is actually ourselves connected to the divine and what that means for us. And then the analogy there of pouring or attempting to pour from an empty cup, it depletes us.
yeah, I think we get so much into people pleasing because we're not pleased with ourselves,
Mm,
and the more we try to juxtaposition ourselves into the the molds that other people have created for us, we're
mm,
never going to be happy. We're never going to be contented.
mm,
Um, and regardless of whatever religious background somebody is coming and listening to this
mm,
podcast about, you know, there's a really great teaching. Jesus, this guy, thousands of years ago, he said, love your neighbor as yourself. And this is
mm,
something that's taught in Islam. It's taught in Judaism. There's the big three, and it's this
mm,
golden rule. And
mm,
Jesus said it was number two of the Ten Commandments. And what I take from that is that Jesus set a bar,
mm,
or humanity, or the universe.
mm,
Our ability to love other people is based upon the bar of our capacity to love ourselves. So if I'm limiting
mm,
how much I can love myself, or Stacy, if you're limiting how much you can love yourself, um, if I love myself this much, I'm not going to love other people more than that. I may pretend to by denying myself, quote unquote, like I'm
mhm,
just going to sacrifice all my time just to love other people. When you really can't. You think about parents that will try to love their kids, but if they're not eating, showering, doing all the hygiene stuff, and
mm,
that fuse is going to be short. And
mhm,
um, I think about, like, I've been sick the last few days, and my ability
mm,
to spend time with my kids and have energy, it's depleted
mhm,
because I'm not feeling well. Um,
mm,
you're not going to be able to love your neighbor, love your friend, love your loved ones more than you are able to love yourselves. So use that as
mm.
the benchmark for loving other people. And if you can't find any other reason to love yourself, then love yourself for the simple fact of loving other people better.
Mhm. 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 I dig that. I align with that. It's so interesting as we were, kind of talking before about I guess I'll share with you a little story.
Please.
So uh, how do I say, or how do I? So I remember one day online because, I have moments of depression, doubt, anxiety, and I realized, where that source was coming from. Years and years of thinking, I am not worthy or I don't deserve certain things, and always being there for other people or in the best way that I could possibly. And those moments now, I don't know what it was. I like to go on YouTube uh, to look up videos to kind of reset my mind. And I came across Brene Brown. And I was like, huh? And when I found Brene Brown, I saw this video about vulnerability that's been seen a gazillion million times. I can only say a gazillion million because that's probably where it's at right now, right?
Yeah, the numbers get hard.
Yeah, about vulnerability. And I couldn't believe, I guess, in that moment, because I was just like, wait a minute. Because I don't know, but it was for me in that moment, I was thinking that there was a deeper level to human understanding because I felt it in me. But I guess sometimes I was like, nah, I don't know, maybe nobody else feels this way. Maybe it's just, that illusion, like nobody else is going through this,
Right.
that we tell ourselves. So when she broke down vulnerability and the care that she put in the wording, I was like, oh my God, it's like Santa exists. Like that's what it was for me. I was just like, no way. Because I had this dream or idea that, as we discussed with customer care, that every business has some level of interaction with humans. I mean, that's how we exist in a sense or build our businesses. But what if there was a deeper level of understanding and compassion that we put in our business? Would it be successful? So it was just refreshing to find this person saying these things in the way that she was saying them, which actually gave me hope to start my coaching business. Um, but it's so interesting that it seems like, I speak to some people, I'm like, have you heard of Brene Brown? Have you heard? And they're like, no, who's that? I'm like, what? But it's like, I guess
Stacy, I think I
I'm
lost you. Are
oh,
you there?
can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Ah, no. What about now, Joe? Ah, Joe's gone. No. Hold on. Let's see if we can get Joe back. Oh, man. Sometimes these things happen in our recordings, but we'll try and get him back. But what I was really trying to say is that, sometimes we don't know a resource is there until we get to a moment where, hold on, Joe's back.
I'm back. Sorry.
All right. It's all good, Joe. All right, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Maybe not. But yeah, so sometimes we don't even know that these resources are available to us. All right, there's Joe. Joe, can you hear me? Nope, no, we can't. All right, so we'll wait for him to come back. But the thing is, we gotta search, I guess. That's what I'm trying to get to in those moments. But it could be very difficult to find the things that we need when we need it because we get stuck. But I don't believe in coincidence. I really don't believe in coincidence. And I believe certain things appear in the times when we need it, whether we think it's a good experience or not a good experience. Joe is joining us back. Let's see if we can get him back on.
I believe I'm here. I'm sorry.
It's
I
okay.
I have a brother who is we're
I've heard so far that you have a brother who, and that was it. Oh, yeah, you're still breaking up there, Joe. Not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me now? Still frozen. I don't know. We'll wait. We'll wait for Joe. Oh, wait. Here he is. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm switching to my laptop because of
Okay.
boundaries. Um,
Okay.
my brother is trying to call me, and I have asked him, and I turned around my do not disturb on my phone. Anyways, I
Got it.
apologize for interrupting, and I've taken
That's all
care of it.
right. That is all right. This is technology. We are adaptable beings.
Yeah.
But what I was pretty much trying to say is that sometimes we don't know certain things that come into our space because we may not be ready to receive it or know how to access it. And that was my whole Brene Brown thing. Like I found it
Mm,
in a time where I was like, there's no way that this exists. Like, how can I create from this space?
mhm,
And it seems like us humans, sometimes we need a frame of reference when it comes to creation and ability. Like somebody's doing it. You know what I mean? Like something to motivate us to obtain something.
mhm,
But I was saying sometimes we can't even gain access in certain moments to information because we may feel like either it doesn't exist or I am unable to really like move in that space because I am frozen, whether it's in doubt, fear, anxiety. Like I am unable to create because I am stuck. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes we get into spaces where we may not understand what that means because that's like saying to somebody in the 1920s and showing them an iPhone, be like, can you
yeah.
believe this? This is amazing. They're gonna be like, sorcery. You know what I mean? Like it
Right.
doesn't exist.
Right. Right.
So I was trying to make that reference. I was still talking a little bit while we were trying to reconnect, but what is it? From your development in this space, what are you finding that helps us to get unstuck? How can we see again?
I think that Stacy, and I'm still on this journey like you are,
Hmm.
and as we go through life and we observe different things and come across different sets of beliefs or values, I think we really have to take a hard look at what our instinct is in reaction to those things.
Mm,
Like, are we being truthful to say that I agree with such and such because every middle-aged white guy in history has always believed such and such, or because
mm,
I was raised in a Christian home, do I believe such and such, or is there a question in my mind that causes me to think, you know, I don't agree with that, and I'm going to work this out. And I think,
mm,
I'm not saying that there's speculative truth. I'm just saying that, um, the more we're willing to have an honest dialogue and say
mm,
that we disagree, and not have dialogue between people that agree, but a dialogue
mm,
between people that may hold different opinions in a way that's respectful, and and being honest with what we feel and what we
mm,
think about things, but humble enough to receive the fact that we are probably more wrong than we are right, and
mm,
and to know that, it's like, I try to hold truth, in the palm of my hand, and say, you know what, this is what I think is true. Like this whole presupposition that, I'm a Christian. Like
mm,
I, this is the best truth I'm holding right now, but it could be bullshit.
mm,
And if it is, like, I'm willing to walk away from it. Um,
mm.
but if we're willing, if if we're not willing to walk away from things that are just complete bullshit, then then that's just insanity.
Yeah.
And it's helpful to know when, like, one of the things I'm doing right now is, I'm doing a lot of training with police officers. Like, if our if our justice system doesn't change, if how we
Mm,
deal with, incarcerating people, and how we deal with, stereotyping people, like, if that doesn't change, then this divisiveness that we see so often politically, and this divisiveness that we see that has made its way into, neighbors and families' hearts, it's just going to grow. And we gotta be bigger than that. We gotta be bigger than, you know, it's so easy to throw labels at things, which can be helpful, but it can also be harmful when you
Yeah.
start to say, like one of the big things is like dealing with Christianity or non-Christian or Republican or Democrat. You limit you put somebody in those categories, and there's a lot of Christians. I don't want anything like I don't want to be called a Christian because that person says they are. I don't want to like I would never want to be called a Republican because some people think that, or a Democrat because they think this. Like, no, it's bigger than that. It's more complicated. That humans are more complicated than that. And I think if we acted more in love and humility, and we were honest with the thoughts we have, as opposed to trying to pose and try to fit into that niche of what other people think we should be or the way that people should act, think or react. Like, that self honesty, Stacy, is really hard.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, I talk about in my book, journaling is so important.
Yes.
Because it gives you an avenue for self-reflection that is utterly safe. Because you can put your questionable, because I think everybody has levels of prejudice that you don't know how to work out. Like, for example, like let's say you look at somebody and they're fatter than you. It's like, oh, that person eats a lot of donuts or whatever.
Right.
You have these thoughts, and most of them are because people look different than us.
Right.
And sure, having a thought is one thing, and doing and acting upon that thought.
Right.
But if you don't have a safe place to process those thoughts, then how do we ever get past the conflicts that we have? So, the ability to listen not only to your own heart and what you're saying, what's the kind of the inner dialogue that's going on, which I had as somebody with mental illness isn't always the best dialogue to have,
Right.
But then having conversations with really smart people like you, it's just like those are so helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's a verse that came to mind. If we humble ourselves, and seek God, for example, like if there is a God out there, then He's probably speaking to us. And if He's not, then I have these really great voices in my head.
You can do it. What?
But it totally could be true. It totally could be in my head.
Right.
But you know what? If the ultimate goal of that is to love and humbly serve other people, then I think we can go in the right direction. But being traveling around the world, I've been around a lot of different places, and my organization's in a lot of places. Like, America's not headed there. Like, we're headed away from humility. We're headed away from oh my goodness, yeah, we're headed away from selfless living. And
can you say more about that? I'm curious of what you mean by that.
That we're headed away from selfless living.
Yeah.
Well, I work for FedEx, and
there it is.
And since COVID hit, I mean, we typically our peak season, as we call it, our busiest season is for the express overnight stuff is usually 2 weeks before Christmas. But we've been running at peak levels for the last 2 years, where people are just buying.
Oh yeah.
And I just and I could look at other people and I could judge other people and say, this is selfless living, this is selfish living, but I really don't have to look much further than my own heart and say, how concerned am I? Because I really can't look at anybody else and say it, but I can just say it myself. And knowing there's a lot of people like me, as I share my story more often, to say, how often am I willing to reach out to somebody that may be struggling, and not in a way that gives me any acknowledgement, not in a way that gives me any credit or cred, like just blessing somebody else just for the sheer fact of the fact that they're human and that they're worthy of love and respect. And I went and had dinner with somebody, and I didn't want to go have dinner with them last week because they just smell bad. And I don't want to go too much into that because that was one of those situations where I was trying to practice what I preach, like, yeah, I'm
Mm,
going to do this because this person's worthy of it.
mm,
Um, but, in my head, there's this trick going on, like, how do I get credit for this? Who do I tell? How do I post it that?
mm,
Even if it's somebody as close as my wife, how do I,
mm,
how do I get to her to respect me more because I did this wonderful thing?
mm, mm.
And it's this, and I know it's part of our nature. And
Right,
even if you look at like evolution as a possibility, like it's, that's how the strong survive is by self-protection. But,
right.
but, but I think there's something more. I think there's something better um,
Mm,
about being willing to lay oneself down to help other people out.
mm,
And I thought about I spent a month with my daughter in Malawi, which is a country in Central Africa, and I don't pretend to know what cultures there's like just because I was there for a month, but I do
mm,
remember I was thinking about the business aspect of what was going on in this little city called Blantyre, and it's
mm,
like what did they have to export? And the only thing I kept on thinking about, like if I would have tried to like make some money off of something that was going on there, it's like just the
mm,
utter kindness um, and their welcomingness of different people.
mm,
Like, that's because when we got to the airport in Blantyre, it was my daughter, myself, and my father-in-law, and it was three
mm,
generations, which is very rare for the country of
mm,
Malawi because one of those generations has died from AIDS. Uh,
mm.
and we got there, Stacy, and they had a parade for us. They had
Wow.
trucks with music, and the whole way from the airport to where we were staying, they were like singing our names. I was just like,
Mm.
this is awkward. It's like,
You're like,
and
who, me?
yeah, like I don't like my name isn't even roll, I don't know, but
It's like in the US, I'm just Joe Reid.
I just, and I'm always feeling like when I'm trying to do stuff for other people, and feel free to call me out, Stacey, but like I just feel
Mm,
like there's so much attached for my benefit. Like
mm,
there's always this thing like, how do I benefit from this? And it's like I don't want to live that way, Stacey.
mm,
I want to bless other people. So and I think a lot of that, when we talk about being broken, my
mm,
organization Broken People or my book Broken Like Me, it's like when you're messy and when you're honest about that mess and you
mm,
reveal your brokenness to other people, like that can be cutting and that can be
mhm,
hazardous for other people. And if you've got
mhm,
somebody in your life that's close to you, then maybe they've experienced that sharpness that comes from your brokenness.
mm,
But the only way they're going to get there, Stacy, is by being close to you. So those
mm,
people that you love, those people that are closest to you, they get in proximity to you because you invite them in because of that love. But then there's these jagged edges that catch and they cut and they scrape, and then there's the whole
mm,
healing and forgiveness process. And it's just
mhm,
I'm working it out, and I don't know,
mm,
but I know in my own heart that
mhm,
I am not holy or
mm,
perfect. And maybe if I can be honest about that to you,
mhm,
then maybe if it's not you, then maybe somebody else would be like, yeah, I
mhm,
have a tendency towards selfishness. And I gotta tell you, selfishness is bullshit. It's
mm,
not the way to go. It's not like self-preservation, like at least for me, that's not how I want to be.
mm.
Um,
You know, I appreciate your perspective and understanding of how you see, your behavior and through your experiences. I feel like we define it for ourselves.
mhm,
And I think what it is, because I'm reading another book, as I discussed with you, by Eckhart Tolle. I think it's called A New Earth. I just started reading that. And he also has said this in The Power of Now. And it's, let me tell you, just like you see on this journey of dealing with, mental illness and evolution of self, I think over time, through our experiences and our level of conscious or unconscious understanding in that moment, we start to label things as good and bad.
mm, yeah,
And
yeah,
what happens is it causes us to behave in whatever frequency we have now determined. So, for example, say I make a donation to somebody because they're in need. And I'll give you an example, actually. So I never knew that there was this thing called Pay It Forward, where you could just go to a restaurant and just be like, you know what, charge me for my coffee and my bagel, but charge me $10 extra and give it to whoever comes in after me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know of that until it happened to me, right?
Mhm.
I actually was hungry that day. I was doing deliveries and I was like, oh my God, okay, I got to do a couple more deliveries and then I'll have enough to do this. I didn't bring any lunch with me. And I went in and this lady was like, it's been paid for. I said, what? She's like, it's been paid for. I'm like, by who? You know what I
Right.
mean? But I was like, oh my God. And I remembered how it made me feel because it was one, unexpected, and two, it was like, I was like, oh my God, the universe has helped me in a moment of need, praise God, you know?
Mhm.
And then I was like, I'm going to tell the world what happened to me,
Mhm.
right? And then I was like, wait a minute, should I tell the world? You know what I mean? Because it's just like, what if somebody really is in need and they're like, well, you don't need it. You don't, you know what I mean? Like, there's a part of me that was like thinking, it's so funny. There was a part of me that was thinking of what other people would think of me for sharing it.
Mhm.
But it's something I made up because I have no idea
Right.
how they would,
Exactly.
like, realistically, I have
Yeah.
no idea how they would feel.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what, Stacy, let's make a decision. What are we going to do? I said, maybe I'll tell my girlfriend. And then that's it.
Mhm.
And I played with that a little bit. Like, how would you feel about that? Does it need
Yeah.
to be a Facebook post? Like, does it? And I was like,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't. And then I did it. And then I said, you know what? I'm gonna give back. I'm gonna do the same. Right. And then same thing happened. I was like, oh my God, I need to tell the world of all the good I did today.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
maybe it'll trigger somebody else to do it.
Right.
Right. Because that's what my motive is. Because that's what I think about. I don't know if you follow Joyce Meyer at all.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, something I obtained from her is, to think about motive, because humans genuinely do not want to hurt other people, but sometimes our behavior does, and we may or may not be aware of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I had to do I was like, okay, so let's sit with it. Because I think it's about questioning self, right? Like, sit with it a little bit, or like journal, like you said. That's what I have a little book by my bedside that I use to kind of sort out my ideas and what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it, because sometimes there's layers on top of that I have to sift through, and I'm like, all right, what's really going on here? So I said to myself, I said, all right, well, why do you want to tell people that you did this? And I was like, well,
Yeah.
I would hope that other people would do it. And then my next question would be, well, do you feel that your action of telling other people of what you did is going to be a direct result of you sharing this? I was like, possibly. You know what I mean? Like, there's a possibility.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And I said, well, why not just leave it for you and just leave it there?
Mhm.
And I was like, well, that's interesting. I was like, okay, I will just leave it there and sit with it and see what happens. I mean, now it's going to be out to everybody
Right.
because we're doing
Stacy
this
does
show.
Pay It Forward. The whole world
Yeah,
knows.
the whole world knows. Oh my goodness, And I sat with it for a bit, and it's interesting because it's like sometimes I'm just like, for example, there's on TikTok, there's this guy that gives free haircuts to people, like randomly. He'll see somebody and be like, look, is it okay if I give you a free haircut today? I just like spending time with people. And he'll do free haircuts for homeless people, doesn't matter. And he shares it. And I said, well, why would he share it?
Mhm.
And I was like, well, if motive matters, what do I feel when I watch his content?
Mhm.
Because I feel, as being human, if there was some type of motive that wasn't serving of love and abundance and peace, I feel as human, because I believe we're all connected, I would have received that. You understand? Like, I think if there was some type of, I don't trust him, like, I would have gotten it.
Mm-hmm.
But if his purpose is to do what he said he's doing, like, is it so bad to share love? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, that's where I come from with it, because I'm just like, I think it just depends on the moment and our current understanding of whatever it is that gives us peace in that moment. Because I heard from someone the other day, I think her name, yeah, I interviewed her, Tiffany Manbod, and she shared a quote from someone else. And she said that each of us are on our own journey home. And that really kind of reset me a little bit, because it aligned with what I absorbed from Eckhart Tolle, that we are the ones that define things as good and bad, but the reality is it just is.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am in a state where I feel like me sharing something is selfish or bringing attention to me, then it's up to me to make a decision in my current state to see if it's really necessary and what is my motive behind it.
Right.
And if I feel like in that day and time that it may go against with who I am in that moment, then I'm going to listen to myself or do the best I can to do so. But it can get a little tricky, Joe, because sometimes there are things that we may resist doing, but we should actually do it. But it depends on the voice, I guess, for us to find out for ourselves, like, am I connected to the source of the divine when I am getting this message, or am I getting this message of what I think is from the divine, but is really from my source of pain?
Yeah. Well, I think I kind of wanted to just sit and listen to you for another 20 minutes, talk about that, because it's really good stuff. But, you know, in terms of other people, like it's always our inclination to judge other people and to judge motives.
Right.
It's our inclination, but it's not our authority. Like, you know, who are we to look at that guy that's cutting hair and say, this is his motive? Because I think that, and I talk about this in my book, that bitterness and envy and jealousy can get in the way of how we perceive the motives of other people. Oh, this person's got 1 million TikTok likes because he's doing hair. You know, he's doing it just for the likes, right? But, you know, how much of that is like, I got 10 TikTok followers, you know, and, you know, we begin to become bitter. And but at the same time, like this judging of right and wrong when it just is, like, that's deep. That's good stuff. And, you know, even when we judge ourselves, it's like, you know, how do we know what's the right next step to do? And I just had a conversation with somebody last Sunday. It's like, I don't know if it's just gas or just God telling me to do something, you know, but, you know, every time I try to I legitimately, with self-reflection and thoughtfulness, try to make the best decision I can.
Right.
If I don't get it right, and let's say there is a God and he is speaking to me, or I do get it right and I'm trying to do that thing that God is telling me to do, the more often I do that, the more accustomed and the more I get to know that voice. And the more familiar you are with that voice that's worthy of trusting, then I think, you know, the straighter the path you can go down towards health. And I also have something I tell my daughters too, is that whenever you're faced with fear, that for me, at least thus far in my life, fear is a good indication of what I should do.
Yeah.
I use that word should very carefully. But as long as it's not a risk to your health or the health and safety of other people, if you're
Hmm.
afraid of something, that's always been a good indication of what I should be doing.
Right.
I don't know why. Um,
Yeah.
but whenever that little fear flag goes off, I'm just like,
Yep.
and literally, this is what I do, Stacey. I
Hmm.
put my head down and I just drive into it. And like
Yeah.
the whole like writing a 300-page bestseller, like
Yes.
I don't know how to do that. I was afraid. I don't even know what
Right.
questions to ask.
Right.
But you just put yourself out there. You put yourself out there,
Yeah.
and you believe that you, Stacey, you have value.
Hmm.
That your life has purpose, and that you know. I was a police officer for a very short time in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and
Hmm.
I never thought that experience would ever mean anything. But now, 20 years
Mm.
later, I'm going and
Mm.
talking to officers about mental health. Uh,
Mm.
it took 20 years for that story to find some kind of hope.
Oof.
Um, and like I use this phrase a lot lately because of that. Like God doesn't waste anything. Your pain,
Absolutely.
your pain is not without purpose.
Hmm.
Your mess is not without message. Um, and the joy and the good things too. Like
Yeah.
I think the value in sharing the good things that happen to you, you can be questioning what other people are going to say about you. Like if you go on and let's say this video gets 10 million likes or whatever,
Mm.
and you can celebrate that,
Mm.
and you can do that in a way that just honors yourself.
Praise
But the
God.
other way,
Yeah.
when you deal with that guy that's cutting hair and he gets 10 million likes, you know, say a big fuck you to bitterness and say, you know what, I'm going to celebrate that with him. That's how I'm going to deal
Right.
with this.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna celebrate this with them, despite or as an indication of that bitterness. I know that bitterness is there. I know that jealousy is there. So I know what to do with that. I know
Yeah.
I can acknowledge the good that person's doing, and give a big fuck you to the judging and the bitterness.
Hell
Uh,
yeah.
so
I
that's
love
my
that.
thought. Um, so my wife. So this is just new.
Okay.
My wife just took a COVID test,
Okay.
and it came back positive.
Oh man.
Just now, she just handed it to me. I thought it was a
Okay.
lollipop. And I thought, and I know it looks like a pregnancy test, but
Yeah.
I know that ain't it because Daddy got some things cut. Um, so my
Oh
wife
man.
has COVID apparently.
Okay. How's
So
she doing? Is she all right? Like, because she said she just handed it to you.
she just like 30 seconds ago handed this to me, and
Okay.
whew,
Deep breath.
deep breath. That just happened. And you know what? It's a fear thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot that comes along with that, Stacey. And
Hmm.
you know what I see in you is just somebody that wants to understand and wants to listen. And if you get the right person that's just willing to shut up and listen,
Hmm.
I think we can make a lot of progress in all the fucked upness of our world.
Hmm.
And please forgive me if that's offensive to you, but
No, it's
um,
all good.
after my friend died, I
Hmm.
was like, I don't give a damn what people think about this Joe. Like I'm done putting on airs. I'm done pretending.
Hmm.
Like, I've had some pretty frank conversations with God because I don't always understand or enjoy or like the things that he quote
Hmm.
unquote says. But if
Hmm.
we can't have those genuine conversations with people, especially somebody that's supposed to be God that's heard it all, like come on,
Mm.
let's just be honest.
Yeah.
But at the same time, be respectful. And
Absolutely.
I appreciate the platform, Stacey, that you have here. And I know that you're a driven person. And can I just say that your chair is really cool too?
Hey, thanks. I was
um,
checking out your headphones. I'm like, it looks like Seattle Seahawks over there.
yeah, excuse me, Seattle Seahawks, go Lions,
I'm so sorry.
beat
I'm
you up,
so sorry.
Lions. But they're never going to go anywhere, so it don't matter. So we'll go with Seattle.
Oh man.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's why, I appreciate you being so open as well, because I think we need more of that in this world. And I feel like tearing up a little bit, but I feel like, there's a balance for everything. It's a balance of unbalancedness.
Yeah.
Boundaries. Oh, snap. It's so funny. All these books that you
Yeah.
have, I've seen them and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll read it later. Like, I read a lot, and
Yeah.
I'm blessed to be able to do so. And, I'm practicing that part of just understanding that things are because they are. And my vision is to understand that I only can decide how I'm going to show up in certain moments, and I can do my best. That's the thing. Do my best to
Yes.
be conscious
Yes.
of the moment, because when we go through pain or joy, like think about it, somebody's like, I won the lottery, immediately, yeah, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or
Right.
so and so passed away, no, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like we automatically just react instead of like taking that moment to be like,
Reflect.
like let me just breathe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's so funny. Like I would be in states where when I would work in customer care, and I would feel like when a customer asked me a question, I had to respond immediately, because if I did not respond immediately, it meant I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then once I started to change the way I spoke, and also, most importantly, change the way I listened, I was able to hear things that I couldn't hear before. Because instead of me in the beginning of my career focusing on words, I started to focus now on pattern, breath, tone. And when you can't see someone, that translates totally differently than when you can see someone. Because when you see someone, you see body language, you see eye contact, you see all the, where they cross their feet, are they toward you or away, and everything. And I started to listen differently. And then when I started to speak differently, I'm like, you know what? Why assume that I know what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask some other questions that are not on script. And what ended up happening is the conversation went from transactional to genuine. And when you have genuineness in moments where humans are communicating, you create this new space. It's like opening a portal
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, let's just be real.
Mm-hmm.
What's really going on right now, Mrs. Jones, Mr. Jones? What are you feeling? What are you going through? People would break down and release pain and misunderstandings or whatever. And these are the moments where we connect as humans. But sometimes when we're in a business world, or whether we're here or depending on the environment, for some reason we feel like it is not appropriate to be ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the source of love and understanding, and creating the safe space to connect selves in a sense.
Well, you have this competing culture we live in of capitalism versus care.
Mm.
And when things are so numbers driven,
Mm.
It raises expectations, and then it raises, expectations raise, what else raises? Fear, right?
Mm.
And doubt.
Wow, well said.
And if we could find the contentedness in the fact that you and I have value just because we are,
Mm.
and not because we should do or be something else. I don't know. I just think that there's something to that.
Mm.
Like we feel like we've. I don't know. I mean, I live in American culture. I've lived here my whole life, and there's a lot of things I don't understand about other cultures because I'm not there. And
Mm.
but if we listen and we grow,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just I'm sorry. Such good stuff that you're saying, and I just appreciate it that you're saying it. And yeah, and I do want to challenge one notion though.
Mhm.
The idea of boundaries.
Mm.
You and I, or maybe I or you, can be vulnerable to the nth degree because we have systems of support that we can fall back on, should that vulnerability leave us in an unstable place. But
Mm.
there are some people you're going to talk to, maybe on here, or maybe just when you leave here and you walk down the street, that can't have that same system of
Right.
vulnerability because they just don't have the support that you and I have.
Mm.
So I'm constantly telling people, like, don't be as open as I am if you don't have a therapist, close friends, loved ones, family to fall back on,
Right.
because to share so much, it really does. It really does require a good like community foundation.
Yes. That is such, oh my God. Yeah, Joe, like that is a very important space to share
Mhm.
because um I learned that early on when I lost a friend that I knew the experience was going to be something I have never dealt with
Mhm.
before, I should say. And I was like, I need a therapist. I was like, get me a therapist. I was like, because you know what it was? I think for me in that moment, it was like everybody connected is going through a similar thing because we're all connected to this spirit.
Mhm.
But I don't know what it is, Joe. I don't know what it is. I just said, I need help. And I
Yeah.
was like, I need to get it from here. And it started a pivot in my life
Mhm.
because my illusion to self was that I had trouble asking for help. But I don't believe now that it's that I had trouble asking for help. I think in moments, yeah. But when you make a statement, it's like, I have trouble asking for help. To me, that's like blanket statement, certain moments. So if I know that this is a wellness moment and I can connect with that, then okay, let's do it. But it is so important because I think that's what we're lacking. Because just like how you said with police officers, you're starting to connect with them in a different space. This is
Mhm.
a space they probably never knew existed. Like,
Yes,
literally,
literally.
like I go to work, I used to hear the statement of, yeah, I'm fine. I leave work at work. I'm like,
No, no.
how do you do that?
I don't know.
How can you share? Like, that's the thing. I was just like, is that a for real thing? I'm like,
They used to
tell,
say that at the police department, like that was like one
yeah,
of the things. Oh, just leave it at work. I'm like, how?
yeah.
Like what? You have to be a psychopath to be able to shut off a part of yourself like that.
Like, you're telling me there's no remnants of your
Right.
day
And it's
in your soul. Like,
it's
there's
just people
nothing.
lying. They're not being honest. It's just pretension of what we should be. Yeah.
I laugh a little, but it's interesting of the
Yeah.
things that we say to ourselves or our loved ones to be like, think about like the number one thing a lot of us do. Like, hey, how you doing today? Good, you? Just immediate
Yeah.
default answer.
Yeah. One of my first chapters in my book is the "How are you?" That's the title of the chapter is "How are
Mm,
you?"
I love it.
Because it's an Americanism. It doesn't mean "How
Yeah,
are you?" It just means it's a greeting. And
yeah.
but if you got social anxiety, for me, it's just like
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing mental gymnastics to try to figure out how to answer that question, and they
Right.
just want to be like they're just saying hi.
Yeah.
Um, and
Isn't it so interesting? Like how we interact with other humans. We're just like, hey, how are you? Good, you? It's like, what would happen if it's like, you know what? I'm not that great today. I'm
mm.
going through some challenges.
So Google that. In my book there's a website where I talk about like how to answer that question in silly ways.
Interesting.
And there are some really good ones. Like one of them is like, so how are you? Is like, oh, my therapist won't let me tell.
Oh my God. Now I have to look this up.
There's some good ones. It's yeah, just having those ready because I tried to be honest one time and I kind of freaked the guy out because usually I'm suicidal Like I'm
Mm,
usually like in the back of my mind, I'm wrestling with this tension between, I dropped my gum. You should just kill yourself. Like it's like that's
mm.
where my brain
It's
goes.
like instant.
It's instantaneously, and
Right.
it's a huge impulse. And I've got the
Mm.
tools to deal with that, and I've got a lot of
Okay, good.
great support.
Yeah.
It's just complicated,
Yeah.
and it's not healthy, and I know that.
Mm.
And I thought the whole world thought this way because it's the way I think, but it's obviously not. I'm finding out.
You know what? I've definitely had those thoughts. They're not foreign to me. And I've made attempts
Mhm.
in my past, in my teenage years, about 2 attempts, I believe.
Mhm.
And I guess for me, the way I understood what was happening for me in those moments was that it was a moment, and I have an understanding of it now that it's about choice, and it's going to happen. It's going to come up. And when does it come up? Like, I had to say, like, when does this come up for me? And it comes up when I don't have an answer. It comes up when I feel lost. It comes up when I have the illusion of being alone. I had to define like when it was happening, and then to like almost like notate it in a sense, and almost like expect it. That was my relationship with it, because I was like, oh, okay, it comes up for me here and here and here.
Mhm.
Because I had the opposite, where it was like when I was really excited and happy about my space or what was going on, I would drink a lot
Mm.
and I would black out. No control. I'm
Yeah.
extreme. It's either high or low.
Yeah.
Like, it's either sky or dirt. And I realized that I am a person that has challenges with not only boundaries with other people, but with myself.
Mm.
To be like, okay, the pendulum is swinging. All right, we're in good space. Oh, get some alcohol. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's, if we are going to, because we have a desire for it,
Mhm.
let's do just one drink,
Mhm.
and let's drink it slow. And if you feel like you're not going to do this well on your own, it's probably good to get somebody, if you have that person, to be like, look, I'm in a really good mood right now. This is what I usually do. I usually drink a lot. Can you just help me just not like get it away from me? Like, if I do
Mm.
that, you know, but it's easier said than done, Joe, because that means, one, I have to admit it. That means somebody's going to see me,
Mhm.
and maybe they may see me in a way that I don't want. You know what I mean? It's like this challenge is there. And then even on the other side of the spectrum, like I just started to share even on this show of the suicidal thoughts that I would have. And it helped me to realize, and that's how I was able to eventually get to the understanding of why is that pattern happening for me? Because it's being delivered to me for a reason.
Mhm.
And if I have the wisdom in that moment, then I can come out of it. But it's for me, I know it's not going to go away. It's not going to disappear. It's going to keep happening. But it's the championing of being like, you know what? I have to do something for somebody else. Or maybe I need to tell someone that I'm going through this, that I can. It's the same side of the spectrum, like the accountability and the understanding of why it's happening, and to, as weird as it sounds, be at peace with it.
Yeah. Wow. One of the things you described is a term I use in my book called coping ahead.
Mm,
So when like when you're struggling, use coping skills when you're struggling.
mhm,
But if you know you're going to struggle and you're not currently struggling, whether it be with alcohol consumption or dealing with a tough situation, you don't know what's going to happen as a result,
Mhm.
then you can begin to formulate a response, which is coping ahead to what you will do.
Mhm.
Because you can't necessarily change how you feel. You can't
Exactly.
necessarily change how you think.
Right.
In order to change the feelings and the thoughts, you have to change what you do. So
Right.
you develop a coping strategy for what ifs,
Yeah.
and not too far in advance. But then there's this idea, like for somebody like you that is kind of in the public eye,
Mhm.
or pastors or law enforcement officers or teachers, like the more that you are willing to share those vulnerabilities, and
Mm.
it's safe for you to do that, the 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 more that people like me or people that are listening to you or watching you
Mm.
can normalize or destigmatize um, the struggles.
Mm.
You know, when a pastor is standing up on stage and saying, you know, don't sin, or a law enforcement officer is saying, don't speed, you know,
Mm.
um, you think that they don't sin, you don't think that they speed.
Right.
Well, but we don't hear that. We get this.
Correct.
You know, pastors are literally on a stage, right? You know, it's
Literally.
there's no metaphor. There's a stage, and it's staged. Like
Higher than.
they're not perfect.
Right.
But all we see is expectations. All we see is not only the expectations they have for us, but the expectations that are placed on them. You know, don't forget,
Mhm.
my friend that killed himself was a pastor.
Mm. Mm.
You think about the pressure put on teachers to come across as having the answers, or
Yeah.
law enforcement officers. There's stigma related to law enforcement.
Oh, well, absolutely
I
there
mean,
is.
they're bad people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're. I could tell you what they feel from their
Mhm.
perspective. And you know, one of the things I went in and told them is like, yeah, how often are they talking about, you know, how many classes on love
Yep.
do they have in the academy? You know,
Or
about,
communication.
well, communication is a huge thing, but
Yeah.
you know, it's just what kind of communication, like.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of de-escalation talk going on right now, but you know, in order to de-escalate, it has to be escalated, and you know what got it there,
Yeah.
and it's just, so if, you know, like presidents, for example, like all these top people, like, you know, coming up with their nice ties and all this stuff, but you know, one of the things I really liked about like Barack Obama
Mhm.
was how human he was and how willing he was to just not be scripted, you know,
Right.
just to have it out. And you get these, you know, some guys, you get up there and you know they're scripted, you know
Yeah.
they're just putting it to the crowd.
Right.
And man, and that's what happens. And then it makes it less likely, less comfortable for your average Joe to be
Right.
like, yeah, I struggle too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I but you know, shit rolls downhill, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's an
yeah.
interesting perception when it comes down to it of how we see ourselves, how we see people in certain roles, and do we believe those roles, and do we believe what it's supposed to. It's very interesting. It's like, oh, sometimes I feel like I'm not actually in reality because
Right, because you're
it's
not
like
real.
it's like I am who am I? Who are you? Like
Yeah, like,
nobody knows.
but I mean, you hear you talk about Joyce Meyer. I mean, she's up
Yeah.
there, all you know, nice and stiff and pristine or whatever. I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying, like,
Mhm.
she's just put together, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, you think she looks like that when she's, you know, got
No.
diarrhea, or you know, she's, you know, we all poop the same, you know, we all.
Exactly.
But if we hide it and like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
we don't think that way, and
Right.
and all of us, we're all a mess, and we're all in need of community.
Mhm.
And they just, some people just are willing to admit it more than others.
Yeah, exactly. That yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting, like, even as I've been doing this show and meeting different people, and I'm like, "Oh, man," like, you know, it's interesting to see how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive that other people perceive us.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's the perception game.
Yeah, it's like, what is actually the true perception? Like, there is no true perception, it's just whatever it is, it is.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to ask you actually about and maybe I shouldn't formulate the question this way, but I'll question just like this. I'll do this. All right. So I was looking at your mission statement on your website, and it says, "Our mission is to create a space for people to share their brokenness, encourage and equip the hurting, build community, and search for meaning." Can you, the part I guess that spoke to me to question is encourage and equip the hurting. I thought that was very profound. Can you share with me what that means for you?
Oh, Stacy, it means a lot. And that's me stalling.
That's okay. That's okay. That's all right. I
'Cause
appreciate that.
I was very intentional when I put that together. I just, one of the things we do with my website is we have a blog, and we have two reasons why we have a blog.
Mm,
One of them is not to get a lot of people to read it. The reasons is I think that everybody has a story,
mhm,
and I think everybody deserves to have their story listened to.
mhm,
So I think, creating a platform like you've done here for me, which thank you very much, to go in and share. It's creating space.
mhm,
Matthew 25:40 says, what you did to the least of these, you've done to me. And that was just Jesus referencing when a group of people were generous to people that were considered the least of these back in the
mm,
Bible. And it's not
mm,
that God looks at people as less than, but
mhm,
it's how does society view people as less than. And I think that with people that feel broken, whether it's,
mm,
whatever category you want to fit that into, I think that, there's a quote too that I really love. And I write this in all my signed books, is comfort the challenged
mm,
and challenge the comfortable.
mm,
And yeah, and I'm not saying like I'm one to equip the people that feel broken. I think there's just a lot of encouraging the equippedness they have in themselves, if that's a word.
mm, mhm,
Um, and the more we create space for that, the more they can grow into the fullness of who they are meant to be.
mhm,
Um, I don't have all the answers. I don't feel like I have any of the answers, but what I do have is God has blessed me with a platform to space,
mhm.
to allow people to share, uh,
Yeah.
um, within my community, and within the website, and with the book. And I'm going to be faithful with that as best as I can. And he really challenged me to be careful how I judge myself as good or bad, or that's something I've been reflecting on a lot, and
Mm,
I don't even understand that fully, but because in faith and in religious circles,
mm.
it's so easy to label things good and bad, and
So
it
easy.
happens all the time,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure. Well, there's the twisted side of labeling things good and bad and black and white, which is just messed up. I
Mhm,
mean, I don't even
mhm.
want to touch that, because that's so messed up that I don't even.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It is.
I think that's why it's there, Joe. Like it's there to help us to understand our understanding and what is understanding in itself. Like what does it mean to understand? Like
Yeah. Well,
it's interesting.
yeah, and and I'm just so honored that to even have a conversation like this where I can feel enabled, encouraged, and like 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 a better person for having it. Um, I'm grateful, and I'm humbled that we could talk about this, and I'm gonna sit and reflect. If your listeners are not journalers, that's okay. I mean, I talk a lot about journaling, but then there's a journaling lifestyle, which
Yes.
is a lifestyle self-reflection.
Mm,
If you always are on the screen, if you're always going, you gotta have that downtime, just to think,
heck
meditate,
yeah.
pray, whatever it is, just think about what you're thinking about, the
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness thing, and if you need more encouragement to do that, I'm sure, reach out to Stacy and her platforms that she has. She sounds like she's got it all going. Or check me out.
Yeah, Joe, you too.
We'll grow together.
Heck yeah, we're all in a state like Tiffany said, we're all on our own journey home, and I'm so grateful that you responded to my message on Facebook, because when I saw your message come up, I found it interesting and profound that you said, I am broken and that I help people with their brokenness. I pay attention, like I said, to how people formulate their thoughts, because I feel that their thoughts, like our voice, is such a beautiful thing to have in whatever way we decide to speak, whether it's through writing, through music, whatever that is our voice.
Right.
And it tells a story. Like when I would speak to people on the phone, I could tell if they're a people pleaser. I can tell if they're in denial. I could tell if they're scared. I could tell everything, because word choice, tone, spacing, all of that matters. Think about it. Like, if somebody comes up to you is like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it," like excited or really freaked out. Like, it's like either way. And I found it so amazing the way you put that, because I was like, interesting. And all I know is that you have a purpose, and the way you formulate how you connect with people is necessary to help a certain population on their journey home. That's all I know.
Yeah, well, and to help myself too, like, because all the pain, all the struggles we have, and for me, the idea that my struggle is for naught is frightening to me. But to know that when I am open with my struggle and I share it with other people, and that has a profound impact on them, and that there's purpose in that struggle, like that makes moving forward for me just so much. Like I can see a future for myself, whereas if I didn't have that thought, the only future I would see for myself is ending it. It's just not making it another day. And like I see hope. There's hope in that that brokenness. Yeah, I heard somebody say, broken crayons still color. Brokenness lets the light shine through. There's a lot of great metaphors, and we usually think of the word broken as a negative, but there's broken records that really shine through it in terms of what people are able to accomplish. And and I think if we are a broken person, if we are broken people, and in my system of beliefs, it allows a loving God, to reshape us into the person that He would want to be able to use for His purposes more. That's what I think, and I could be totally off my rocker. And I get it.
That's the best part.
It's the best
You don't
part.
know.
It's faith, right? It's faith.
Exactly.
And I think our doubt, people with faith, there's like, oh, I know, I'm certain, and it's my doubt is a substance of my faith.
Exactly.
And it's there. So even what we're doing right now, it's like, do I think I got it together? I have no idea.
I know I'm doing my best, Joe.
We're just trying.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like, I think sometimes, this comes back up with perception of how we see someone based on the role they play, or the role that they are in, or what we think the role means. Like, some people probably see my show and they're like, "Wow, Stacy, you have so many answers. Like, you're just," I'm just like,
"You're so smart."
Yeah, you're so smart. Like, how'd you get so smart? I was like, look, I will take that I am articulate and that's where it stands. Like, I just have a way with words because I read a lot and I talk a lot and I listen a lot. You
Yeah.
know, do I know anything? You know, I think I'm like not colorblind. Like, I think, you know, all my blues are blues and all my greens are greens. I know that.
Mhm.
I know that things grow from the earth, and I know there's some type of connection that we have to the space that we live in.
Mhm.
And I know that everybody has their own truth and their own denial. Like,
Mhm.
and I think that we have a connectedness and a separateness. And I feel that Earth itself is a heartbeat and we're all part of it, whether we
Yeah.
cause what we label as destruction or what we cause as creation. Like, there's a duality to everything.
Mhm.
And it's not for us to be like, oh, that guy is not doing it right. It's what's going to be right for that guy. I
Yeah.
don't know. Only that guy knows. I
Yeah,
could
I
try.
tell you, there are some politicians I'm just like, yeah, he's not doing it right. But
We either
I'm not,
move toward or against.
yeah, I'm sorry.
It's all good. Joe, that's a conversation for another day.
For another day. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah. We do our best, and that's all that
We
matters.
do our best. Well, and that's what Brene Brown says. You know, if we all just looked at each other as just saying, hey, they're probably doing their best. You know, if we just believe that about them, then it helps.
Yeah, it does. Woo, does it? It's like, well, why would he and why would she? They're doing their best. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't like it, but all
right. Yeah, that's a hard one for me to believe. Like, are they really doing their best? Like,
yeah, it's like you see them like,
yeah.
But it's because we have a perception of what we feel the behavior is for the role. Like, we think that but it comes from I.
Yeah.
It comes from I. Like, as a so-and-so in this department, that is how you do this. I would never do that. There's got to be a better way. Who has it? I do.
I do. I will solve it. The inevitable I.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
The
But
all-seeing eye.
yeah, like if we just got it like right here, and it's like, no, doesn't align. You
Not
know.
there.
I think our message, that's why I said, you know, I love the way you wrote your mission statement, because I knew that your way of how you shared your story, dealing with mental illness, dealing with your friend's suicide, and your constant journey of dealing with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that you specifically went through what you went through because it happened, and you have a voice that is going to align with a certain population. So that's the way I try and look at it, because I could look at another, you know, person and be like, is that helpful? It may not be helpful to me, or the language for me is not, you know, something I can align with, but I know this person is speaking to a certain population. So it's like we are assigned a group of people, unbeknownst to us. We're assigned those people, but we will never find them if we don't share our story in the way that we know how to share it. So like with your book and your website, you are connected to a certain population, and that population is connected to another infinite.
Yeah. But you know what? It's you know, as we look at this, and you know, I try to push back against the I use the word capitalistic ideology of like expansionism, and what I mean by that is just how many people can I reach? You know, how many people can I affect? And you know, it's been my constant reminder in front of me daily is I just want to help one person.
Yeah.
When I created the website, if I created the website not as web designer, like I don't know anything about web design, but I put it together, like what would be helpful to me? And when I wrote the book, I literally wrote this book to one person. And I had that person in mind. So whenever I'm talking about you, or I use the word this person or whatever, like there's one specific person in mind. And I knew that if I could reach that one person, then maybe there's another. But I just go back to the principles of Jesus, where he's just like, you know, it's all about the one with Jesus, the lost coin, the lost sheep, the prodigal son. You know, he would leave the bulk of the people to go find the one. And I think if you try to reach 1 million people, you're not going to reach anybody. But if you try to reach one person, well, maybe you'll reach 2. Who knows? but I know that I can pretty much only make a difference in one.
Right.
That's my attitude. Maybe it's more. Maybe it is, but that's not my responsibility. My responsibility is, and what your responsibility is, I'm guessing, is just to tell it, just
Yeah,
to tell your story,
absolutely.
and let he who has ears let him hear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Joe, I want to speak to
Oh,
you even more
yes,
because
I know.
this conversation, I
Just
feel
a
like we
lot
could
of
get
different things.
deeper and deeper. There's levels to this. But
Yeah.
Joe, real quick, can you share with us, for somebody that is going through that moment of questioning or the moment of like, how can I continue with self or whatever it may be? How can we find you on the internet?
Yeah. So two answers to that. Continuing with self. Don't worry about finding me. I'm just
Mm,
Joe. Find yourself.
mm.
Um, open up. I've got all these books over here. I've got 25 journals where I've been writing for the last
Oh, beautiful.
26 years or whatever. You
Mm,
know, be honest with yourself in a journal. Find yourself. Um,
mm.
be honest with yourself, like really gut level honesty, and start with the simple questions. What's your favorite candy? What's your favorite food? And the more and more you get used to answering the questions honestly that are quite simple, then the harder questions will come to you and what you believe and where you can
Yeah.
question more things about yourself. If you want to reach out to me, you can go to my website. It's www.broken-people.org. Um, there's a link to my book, but I'm just another guy. Um, you know, connect with Stacy, connect with whoever. But really, I think the best, once you decide, look for yourself and you set that bar for loving yourself to be able to reach out to other people and then in the community that you have, not to a stranger like me. And again, you can go to my website, you can buy my book if you want. There's some decent stuff in there, but within your own community, begin to step out with some courage
Mm-hmm.
and fear. Like, please be afraid. Please be afraid. The fear, fear nothing bullshit that doesn't happen. But what
Mm-hmm.
fear gives you opportunity is have courage to step out and begin to expose that inner self of who you are to those people that are in your community. And you're gonna see some people fall off, and you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna see some people step up.
Yeah.
Um, so if you go to the website link, there's a contact form you can get in there. I'm yeah, I'm really easy to get a hold of, and I'm really quick at responding back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Stacy, reach out to Stacy here. Make sure that you giving your perspective of her podcast or this thing, with a rating, it really does make a difference because it allows it to get to other audiences. It allows people to take what she's doing more seriously. Please, you know, share the love in that regard, in that respect. So, because it does mean that kind of affirmation, it does mean a lot.
Oh man, thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate your vision, your story, your understanding, and it's amazing to speak with somebody else that is going through life, but you know, is okay with like not having all the answers and doesn't pretend to have all the answers. It's refreshing to speak with you. I could see why you do what you do, and I can understand how beautiful it is to connect with you because your very existence is rare. So I,
Yeah,
I'm
thank you,
grateful
thank
that
you.
in the moments where you wanted to end, that you decided to begin. So I'm grateful for that.
Whoa, let me write that down real quick.
Yeah.
No, seriously, I'm gonna write that down.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Post-it note. It's all about the decisions.
yeah.
Yeah. That's what it became for me. It's like, oh, okay, I can't do this anymore. But I was like, nope, start, you know.
Well, that's I think that what is really a deciding factor between who is quote successful or not successful is when do you choose to allow this struggle to be the ending of you or the beginning of you, and just as a person that goes to the gym, like I understand that there's purpose in that pain.
Yeah.
There's growth in that pain.
Yep. There's levels to this. We
Yeah,
thought there was
are levels.
one.
Yeah.
And then when we got up, we're like, 30.
Yeah. Yeah. 45.
Yeah.
I'm on level 45.
Yeah. There's this quote. I'll leave this as the last thing.
Sure.
But this guy said, and I was like, oh my God, he's so right. It's like when you climb the mountain, you're climbing the mountain, you get to the top, and then you realize you're at the bottom of another mountain. That's what life is. And it's like you think you're like, oh, I hit a ceiling. Like there's nothing else. There's always something else. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, ask people like Robin Williams what it felt like at the top of the mountain. Oh, that was the bottom. You know, there's a guy, one of my favorite rappers, NF. You know, he talked about like how he, you know, got platinum album, and he's like, I was never more miserable. You know, it's like, yeah, just be careful how you judge people.
That Brene talks about.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right. So
thank you so much for your time, Joe. Oh man, I gotta have you on again. We gotta have another talk. It would be amazing. I'm gonna go ahead, of course, in the show notes, put all of your links so people can connect with you. And once again, thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.